The next year, 2006, we saw another, I would say, rupture when we watched Benedict praying in a mosque in Turkey. I'll leave that open to both His Excellency Father and Nicholas. Can you tell us a little bit about the event and what this means?
Well, not only was it praying in a mosque, which is already an act against the first commandment of God. I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me. So that's already a mortal sin objectively. But he prayed toward Muhammad's tomb. He turned toward the tomb of Muhammad. Now, St. Thomas Aquinas says that to pray before the tomb of Muhammad is an act of apostasy. So I think that all you need to do is to fill in the blanks as to what happened that day, and that is he posited an act of apostasy. We believe in a triune God. We believe in a God that has a Son, an only begotten Son who is equal to him in all things, and we believe in the Holy Ghost. The Muslims do not believe in such a triune God, and therefore we do not worship the same God. Therefore, he was worshiping a false God.
Well, it almost seems that we're so used to apostasy, it almost wasn't shocking, wasn't it? When we saw it happen, we thought, oh, well, just add it to the list.
Yes, it's perfectly in conformity with the decree on ecumenism and Nostra Aetate, the decree on non-Christian religions, and with all the ecclesiology that faith for them is a religious experience. It's turning on to God, and various people have various faith experiences, and why not participate in this? All religions are a means of salvation. They say, some are better than others for that, but they all are all a means of salvation. John Paul II in Catechesi Tradendae in about 1980 specifically said that the children must be taught that non-Catholic religions are a means of salvation, which is a bold-faced heresy. The opposite truth is what Pius IX said and called a most well-known Catholic dogma, and that is, outside the Church, there is no salvation. And this has been repeated by so many organs of the magisterium. I mean, it is a most well-known Catholic dogma. It was stated again by Pius XII. These people are clearly guilty of heterodoxy, that is heresy, and heteropraxis, that is a practice that is in accordance with their heresy, which actually confirms the fact that they are heretics and also manifests even more their heresy.
Yes, indeed it does. And to return to your point, though, Stephen, that it's been going on for so long, it seems that people are no longer shocked by it. The different interfaith type of worship experiences that Paul VI participated in, and that John Paul II participated in, the different things that he did, for instance, in Africa. What Benedict XVI did in the mosque is simply one more installment, and I think that unfortunately people have become numb to how shocking and how outrageous this really is.
I would go beyond that. I don't think they're numb. I think they agree with it. I think that most people in the Novus Ordo have lost the Catholic faith and do believe that all religions are more or less good, and that everyone has a path to salvation in each religion. And this has been inculcated in their parishes for years. It is the whole spirit of the Novus Ordo of I'm okay, you're okay, where there is not some exclusive religion that we must adhere to, the one true faith, outside of which there is no salvation. It is perhaps the most devastating effect of Vatican II is this killing of the Catholic faith in so many millions of souls by the poison of ecumenism. They are not numb to it. They agree with it.
But, my Lord, wouldn't you say that, what about recognize and resist type of traditional Catholics? They certainly don't agree with it. They just, Well, they seem to make excuses saying, oh, well, we don't know what he was really praying when he was... I think I've seen some people
the Holy Rosary?
Sure, yeah. Well, I've seen people make that kind of like, well, sure, his shoes were off and he was facing towards Mecca, but inside his head he was probably praying the Hail Mary or
the
Athanasian the luminous mysteries, I'm sure.
Well, that's absurd. That's totally absurd because he's positing an act of apostasy. What would lead you to think that he is inside positing an act of Catholicism? If he were Catholic and if he were positing an act of Catholicism, he would run out of that ceremony as fast as he possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the Catholic thing to do, to get out of there. But these are people that will sacrifice anything, including their own logic and reality, everything, on an altar of saving their model, which is that there is continuity of Catholicism in the post-Vatican II church. You're putting that in quotation marks because the post-Vatican II religion. This is their model of so many people, Novus Ordo conservatives, that there has to be continuity. And therefore, when anything contradictory comes down the pike, reality, logic, a clear thinking, common sense, everything must be sacrificed upon that altar in order to preserve that model. And so they sink into a complete absurdity that you can't even take seriously.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the church law operates is that your external actions are presumed to be in conformity with what you're thinking inside. And that's the whole basis for so much of church law. And when, therefore, you see someone making this sort of act of prayer and act of worship, externally you have all the evidence for that. You have to presume that internally everything is going along with that. But I think part of it was part of the reason for excusing him and John Paul II is something that came up in a previous discussion, that there, thanks to Vatican II, there is very much the inclination to look upon religion as an internal thing, and to say that, well, we always have to look at the person's internal sense before we make any sort of judgment, because his internal sense might be really good, and we can't presume to judge anything from his external acts.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes along with it.
And that doesn't make sense, because how do you get into someone's mind? If you can say that, well, we can get into his mind and say he's innocent, by the very same token, and with the very same authority, you could go in and say, well, we've seen his mind and he's guilty. How can you read somebody's mind? The only thing you can do is go on externals and presume, as the law does and as common sense does, that someone agrees with what he's doing. Unless there's a gun to his head, and I've even heard that argument. How do you know that he didn't have a gun to his head when he was doing this, that, or the other? It just becomes really absurd. It's like a lunatic asylum.
Yeah,
well,
it really is.
Yeah, now you have all of the conspiracy theories about, resignation because of a death threat. It's always someone trying to excuse the actions. These people can't be thought of as adults who are in complete control of their actions and their words.
No.
There always has to be something, because they've already reached their conclusions. Therefore, they have to bend every action in order to make that conclusion work. I've been reading about this ridiculous bishop, that he is now the bishop in white from the falsified secret of Fatima. There's so many problems with that. A, he's not a bishop because he was consecrated in the New Rite. But B, you already admitted that this was a falsified secret that he helped cover up. So let me get this straight. The guy who helped cover up Fatima is going to be the bishop in white when he's not a bishop himself? I mean, the contortions these people put themselves into is unbelievable.
No, well, actually, we figured out the whole thing, and that is the real Ratzinger. This is the conspiracy, the way it goes. The real Ratzinger decided he wanted to turn everything back to before Vatican II. So he was arrested and tied up and gagged and put in the basement of the Vatican. And the one that announced his resignation is actually a phony, and you can tell by the ears. And and he's making a pass for a real liberal. That's the.
For those of you who are too young for this, His Excellency is recycling the old Paul VI theory, especially regarding the ears. The prisoner of the Vatican.
Stephen, even Archbishop Lefebvre joked about that one. He said that the real story on the death of John Paul I was that he went into the basement of the Vatican and had a heart attack when he ran into Paul VI, who was still alive.
Oh. Well, I've got to keep us on the serious trail. We're having a little too much fun with this.
Okay.